If you had told me a year ago that I would risk my marriage, my family, and my own sense of self over a man I barely knew, I would have laughed in your face. I always thought I was the loyal one, the dependable wife, the glue that held our home together. But life has a strange way of testing you, of showing you sides of yourself you'd rather never meet. My name is Melissa, and this is the story of how I let something reckless and intoxicating take root in my life, and how the fallout nearly destroyed the people I love most. It started in the simplest way possible. My son Ethan had just turned 15 and made the varsity football team at our local high school. He was ecstatic. This was the dream he'd been chasing since he was a kid, running around the backyard in oversized shoulder pads. His coach, Ryan Porter, was new in town, early 30s, tall, athletic, with that easy smile that made people instantly comfortable. He was the kind of man who could make you feel like you were the only person in the room when he looked at you. The first time I really spoke to him was after a Saturday practice. I had stayed late to drop off a stack of fundraising forms, and Ethan was still in the locker room. Ryan was standing by the field, clipboard in hand, the sunset casting a warm glow over everything. He thanked me for helping out and joked that I was the most organized football mom he'd met. I laughed, probably blushed, and thought nothing more of it. At least not then. Over the next few weeks, I found myself talking to him more and more. It was always about Ethan at first, how he was doing, what skills he needed to work on, but somehow those conversations started stretching beyond football. He asked about my job, my hobbies, how long my husband and I had been together. I noticed he listened in a way that felt different. My husband, Mark, is a good man, but after 15 years of marriage, our conversations had become predictable, almost scripted. With Ryan there was curiosity, energy. One rainy evening, I dropped off snacks for the team in the locker room after a late practice. Most of the boys had already left, and Ryan was there alone, putting away equipment. We ended up talking for almost an hour. The sound of the rain against the roof, the smell of wet grass, his laughter. It felt like something out of a movie. When I got home, Mark asked why I was so late, and I said there was traffic. From then on, I started making excuses to be around the team more. Volunteering for events, helping with schedules, baking for fundraisers. I told myself I was just being a supportive mom, but deep down, I knew I was chasing that spark I felt whenever Ryan and I were in the same space. The first time I realized I was in trouble was during a Saturday game. Ethan had just scored his first touchdown of the season, and I was beaming. Ryan came over to congratulate me. Me, not just Ethan. He put his hand on my shoulder, looked right into my eyes and said, "You must be so proud." My heart skipped, and I had to look away because the feeling was too much. After that, it became a quiet, dangerous dance. Text messages about practice would drift into late-night conversations about music, books, and dreams we'd never chased. Sometimes he'd send a photo from the field, just to say good morning. I told myself it was harmless, that I was allowed to have a friend. But there was a part of me that knew this was no longer innocent. Mark started noticing changes. I was on my phone more, smiling at messages I wouldn't share with him. I began putting extra effort into my appearance on game days. Lipstick, a dress instead of jeans, my hair done just right. When Mark asked about it, I said I was just in a good mood lately. The truth was, Ryan had told me once that red looked good on me, and suddenly, I owned 3 new red dresses. One evening, after a late team meeting, Ryan offered to walk me to my car. We lingered by the driver's side door, the cool autumn air making every breath visible. He told me he appreciated everything I'd done for the team, that Ethan was lucky to have such a dedicated mom. His voice was softer than usual, almost tentative. And then he stepped just a little closer. Not enough to touch, but enough for the space between us to feel charged. My heart pounded so loudly I thought he could hear it. I drove home that night with my hands trembling on the steering wheel. That moment haunted me. I told myself it was just a crush, that nothing had happened. But in my head, I replayed it over and over. I started wondering about him at the most random times. What he was doing, whether he thought about me. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Things came to a breaking point 3 weeks later. Mark had been working late a lot, and Ethan was at a friend's house. Ryan texted me, asking if I could drop off some paperwork for the upcoming playoff game. I could have left it in the school office, but instead I drove to the field where he said he'd be. It was quiet, the floodlights casting long shadows. We talked for a while, and then there was this pause, an unspoken moment where we both knew what was happening. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face, and I didn't pull away. It wasn't a kiss, not exactly, but it was something that crossed a line I can never uncross. The guilt hit me almost immediately. That night, lying in bed next to Mark, I couldn't look at him. I kept thinking about how easy it had been to let it happen, how much I had wanted it in that moment. The next day, I told Ryan we couldn't keep talking like we had been. He agreed, but his eyes told me he didn't really want to stop either. From there, things spiraled. Mark became suspicious. Ethan started asking why I wasn't coming to as many games, and Ryan began keeping his distance at practice. The energy between us shifted from playful to strained. I had broken something, not just in my marriage but in myself. It's been months now. Mark never found out the full truth, though I think he suspects more than he lets on. Ryan and I don't speak outside of games, and even then, it's all polite nods and small talk. Ethan still loves football, but I can't bring myself to sit in the stands without feeling that knot of regret in my stomach. I learned that temptation can sneak up on you, that it doesn't always come in the form of something you obviously know is wrong. Sometimes it comes wrapped in kindness, laughter, and a sense of being seen in a way you haven't felt in years. And that's the most dangerous kind of all. If I could go back, I'd keep my distance from the start. I'd remind myself that a spark is not worth the wildfire it can cause. But the past can't be rewritten, only learned from. And I'm still learning about love, loyalty, and how easy it is to lose yourself if you're not careful.